There's a difference between being poor and being broke. Now, the difference is that being broke is temporary, but being poor is eternal. Now, today I'm going to cut this series that I'll be reviewing it every week, the books which I've read and the books which have contributed to who I am today. Now, this series I will be covering one book per week, and now in every session it will be one book, and then I'll be sharing the takeaways that I have from that specific book. Now, today I will start with a book that this was the first book I read, and now the reason I read this book is that when I walked away from selling gas, what I noticed was that I did not have any money to show for the 10 months that I had been selling gas. And now, for me, the question was, where did my money go? So that was the question that was running in my mind, and that is why I started reading this book, so that I can find the answer to my question of where my money went. Now, this book revealed to me the mindset that showed me how I had gone about losing my money. But now, the second book that I'll be covering in the next session, the one I will mention why now it gave me finally the answer that I was looking for. Now, as I have already mentioned, we are starting with That Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. Now, if you don't know me, I am Samuel Kim, the founder and CEO of NK Elite. Now, NK Elite is an agency which focuses on one thing, and that is optimizing revenue for non-profits and also for skincare direct-to-customer brands. Now, into the book now. So, as I have already mentioned, I have 3 takeaways from That Poor Dad. Now, the first one about cash flow. Now, the thing about cash flow is that cash flow is about what is going on in your mind. So, for example, for me, the cash flow that I had for my mind was a poor person's cash flow. So, this is whereby the money comes in and then all of it goes out through expenses. And then there is the second is the rich person cash flow. Now, the rich person cash flow, this is whereby the rich person has invested in assets, and now these assets are the ones which are provided him with the cash flow now. So they are the ones that are providing the person with the income. Then finally, there is the middle person cash flow. So in this middle person cash flow, what happens is that they receive the income goes out through liabilities and then goes out through expenses finally. Now what happens is that for a middle class person, they have a lot of liabilities and now they have very little assets. So majority of their income is spent on liability and expenses, and the end of the day they end up with very little to no assets. So those are the 3 types of cash flow that I learned from this book. The second thing is about working for money, and now this one is more about the idea that the poor and the middle class work for money, but the rich person doesn't work for money. So what this means is that for majority of the poor people and the middle class people, what happens is that they are exchanging their time for money. Now this is in terms of mostly it's in terms of a job. So most of the time they have a job, and now through that job now that is where they get the income. And what happens is that because their income is tied to money. What happens is that they reach a certain point and then they plateau because now at the end of the day you can only work for around 8 hours per day. So at the end of the day you cannot work like that. So that is the thing about the poor and the middle class. So their income is capped because most of their income is coming from their job. Now for the rich person now, they don't work for money. So they make money work for them. So for a rich person is not looking at what he can do so that he can earn money. For the rich person is looking at what leverage he can have. And now through that leverage, he can put money into that leverage and now that leverage can now generate money. So an example of this is that let's say that you run a business. So you run a business now, what you end up doing is that you end up hiring people so that they can work for the business. Now at the end of the day they do what they deliver what the business is supposed to deliver. And now by doing that now you are able to pay the people who are doing the work and also you are able to get something into your pocket. So the business here is your leverage. So through your business now, you are able to use your money to pay your employees' salaries. Now by doing that now, what happens is that the money ends up working for you. So you are not working for the money, but you are using the money to work for you. So that is my second takeaway. Now my third takeaway is about the terminologies like the difference between assets and liability. And now what happens in Richard Poor Dad is that it gives this very simple explanation of what an asset is and what a liability is. So for instance, it says that an asset is something that puts money into your pocket. And now on the other hand, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So that is the difference. Now what I have noticed is that most people tend to bring confusion between the two, whereby when you look at a financial statement, like things are so messed up that we are not even sure which one is bringing in money and which one is taking out money. And now, for me, that is an issue that I had. And I remember when I was in high school now, it was very difficult for me to balance the balance sheet. And now, since I got this explanation from Kiyosaki, what happens is that nowadays it's very easy for me to balance my books because now when I look at something, the only question is it putting money into my pocket or is it taking money out of my pocket? So if it is taking money out, that is a liability. If it is putting money in, that is an asset. So that is my that takeaway from that book by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. Now about this book now, if you have not read this book yet, I will recommend you go and read it. Because now this book is full of stories. Like every chapter has a story to it, and now through the stories now you can be able to relate to your life. And now when you relate to your life now, it becomes very easy for you to understand that concept in a way that you can apply it in your life. The other thing about this book is simplicity. As I've already mentioned about the assets and liabilities, so it makes it so simple that when you are looking at the world, it's very easy for you to know this is an asset, this is a liability. So it makes financial concepts very easy, such a way that you can apply them in your life. Now, that is all about That Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter. next week I'll be covering another classic personal finance book. So Rich Dad Poor Dad was a classic book for the 21st century, but I'll be covering next week. I'll be covering a book that is a classic now from the 20th century. So I'll be seeing you next week, and for now, bye bye. DM.